Hey there, welcome back to Joni's Weekly Roundup. This week on the Roundup, the Holy Spirit is flipping tables all the way back to the 80s. That's right, the OG pulpit pimp himself, the grandfather of the American prosperity gospel, Jim Bakker, is back in the news. You may remember Jim and Tammy Faye Bakker from the Praise the Lord ministry that was so popular back in the 80s. Many of you may have thought that Jim Bakker was still serving time for financial crimes and wire fraud. Decades ago, Jim Bakker was sentenced to 45 years in prison for his financial crimes against the church. But he ended up only serving about 4.5 years of that sentence, and the last 6 months of that sentence was served in a halfway house. Makes you wonder if he had any friends in high Masons. I mean, friends in high places. After Jim Bakker basically got off scot-free, he remarried and returned to his favorite ministry pastime of fleecing the sheep. Jim was doing quite well with his new television program and ministry compound. However, this past week on his television program, Jim Bakker seemed very desperate. He was asking his partners and donors to please step up their giving. As he explained it, his ministry is only 1 month away from bankruptcy, and that if the ministry folds, he'll be out on the street because the ministry pays for his housing as well. So he asked if he could gather up at least 1,000 people to give not 1,000, but even just $100. Every little bit would help. Jim was very transparent and forthright about the financial straits he and his ministry find themselves in. However, he's been very, very quiet in regards to the church that he runs. Jim Bakker's ministry empire includes a church and ministry compound called Morningside, USA, located in the Ozark Mountains. Now, you would think a large congregation would be able to provide Jim, Lori, and their family with plenty of provision to be able to live off of. However, Jim Bakker's Morningside Church has come under a great deal of scrutiny as of late. Jim, now in his mid-80s, oversees the congregation, but the lead pastors of the congregation are a married couple by the name of Joe and Becky Campbell. Over the past 5 months, it has been revealed that both Joe and his wife Becky have been accused of grooming behavior and child SA by at least 4 victims, and many more are said to be coming forward. As Jim Bakker has been begging for money over the past few months, the accusations against Joe and Becky Campbell of Bakker's Morningside Church are growing in numbers. Eyewitness accounts and victim testimonials have shown that both Jim and Becky groomed, SA'd, and spiritually abused several children under their care as they were operating as youth leaders in the church. As of now, 4 victims have come forward with their stories of abuse, including Becky Campbell forcing these children to watch XXX-rated movies while they were doing youth group shut-ins and sleepovers at the Campbell's house, as well as Becky showing the young students her adult toys. Other victim allegations include child SA perpetrated against them by Joe Campbell, including every form of child SA. These allegations are very serious, and we will hear much more about this story as it continues to develop. It seems as if the Daystar dumpster fire is so huge that some of these smaller ministries that are undergoing similar exposures are forgotten, not explored as deeply because of the ongoing scandals at Daystar and other large ministries. However, as we say so many times, we are all standing back and watching God expose the pulpits of these wolves. And we stand with all the victims. We continue to pray for God's justice. Speaking of Joni and her Daystar dumpster fire, this week, Table Talk aired another show hosting another blast from the 80s past, Benny Hinn. Benny Hinn gave Joni and her Table Talk groupies a very eerily accurate prophetic dream in which he had of himself and other leaders going to heaven, but not necessarily receiving the warm welcome they were all assured they would get. The show that aired this week shows Benny Hinn recounting a dream he had in which he went to heaven. And Benny was very shocked and afraid to realize that not everyone that was standing there in heaven would be able to remain. Benny specifically pointed out that this dream he had was speaking to leaders that should not be so sure of their salvation if they're not seeking to truly live for God from their hearts. Let's take a listen.
Benny Hinn has a dream that he claims was from God, and in the dream, he seems to get a very harsh rebuke.
There's a dream I want to just tell you about. In my dream, I see myself standing with a group of people all dressed in white. I see the Lord. I see Jeannie Clattenburg sitting on an organ to the left. She's in heaven now. I see this gate, beautiful gate, shining with diamonds. And now the Lord does this. And the gates open, and the first man was in. And she played beautiful music, came out of that organ, heavenly music. And then the gates closed, and the Lord did. Then the next person, and the same music. Now, to my shock, the Lord did. Two big men came and took one of the people away. And when he turned, I saw his face. I'll never forget the fear of that man's face. And out of that organ came the most frightening music. Well, one after another went in, and then some were rejected. And this all in the dream, I can see like it was last night. My turn came. I'm now on the front. I looked at the Lord. Jeannie looks at the Lord. You can imagine what I felt. I'm feeling it now. Is it yes? Or is it no? And suddenly I woke up with his voice in my ear. I'm watching you, don't blow it. It scared me. When I tell that dream, people say, well, how can you fail? I said, don't ever forget 1 Corinthians 9:27, where Paul said, I put my body under subjection, lest after I have preached others, I may cast away. So we can be anointed, but if we're not living right, we'll be rejected.
Benny Hinn's dream looks an awful lot like a prophetic warning. What I found out this week was that this show with Benny Hinn was a replay. The original show was aired on August 8th of 2022, almost 3 years ago. How prophetically accurate that this dream that Benny Hinn had was a warning to Joni and friends. This warning came to them long before the Daystar scandal ever broke. And as we look at it this week in hindsight, as it re-aired, it carries even more significance. As Benny Hinn continued to share his explanation of what he thought the dream meant, he alluded to King Saul and a heart that desired the praise of men more than the praise of God. Benny said this is a warning to all of us, especially leaders, because they can still operate in their giftings, but may not know that the favor of God and the hand of God has been removed from them in their ministries. This show was a replay of the original one that was filmed in August of 2022. I began to ask a lot of questions. Does Joni understand that this was a prophetic warning to her? Does Joni understand how merciful and gracious God is to do that for her? Is God reminding her that he spoke this word to her and that it was in regards to her ministry over there at Daystar? Did Joni purposely want to rerun that show because they don't have any decent people left at Daystar that want to be associated with them or appear on their show? The only ministries left over there at Daystar are those that really operate out on the fringes of Christianity. They have a lot of doctrine that's borrowed from New Age and even witchcraft practices in some cases. They're not aligned with biblical doctrine or theology at all, and their fruit shows it. All of them are running after greedy gain, charging people for healings and prayers, manipulating people into giving, keeping people purposely blind so that they'll have to follow their spiritual leadership. Those are the only people left at Daystar. Was Joni trying to use this prophetic word as a weapon to try to strike out perhaps at Jonathan or Susie or any of the other 22 programmers who have left Daystar since the scandal broke? Or is there a mole in Daystar? Did somebody purposely suggest they replay that show, hoping that Joni's ears would be open even the tiniest little bit to hear God speak to her again? Or is someone at Daystar just mocking your ignorance, Joni? We will soon find out. A few years before Marcus Lamb passed away, Marcus teamed up with then family counselor Denise Boggs, who was not only a family counselor, a beloved, chosen family member of the Lamb family. Denise Boggs helped to counsel the Lamb family through many ups and downs, and more recently is known for counseling the family through the SA allegations of baby Lamb, and even the interviewing process of Pete, and the subsequent ongoing investigation that is taking place regarding Pete's involvement with the child SA of baby Lamb. Denise helped the family overcome Marcus's infidelity years ago, and Marcus wanted to join forces with their beloved family counselor, Denise, to open a ministry home for ministers that have fallen into infidelity, a place where they can come and be restored, and where their marriages and families can be restored. This ministry home was called Poppy's House. The grandkids call him Poppy. It was the last ministry that Marcus had poured his heart into before his death. Seeing as the main focus of Poppy's House was to reunify families together, husbands and wives, after infidelity, it was really bad optics for Joni to keep that ministry running after she just stole a married woman's husband and married him herself. Shortly after, Joni Lamb married Doug Weiss. She dismantled the Poppy's House ministry and sold the property. Joni claims that she sold the property and dismantled the ministry because it was unprofitable. But once again this week, Jonathan brings the receipts and provides us with an audio tape of a meeting in which Jonathan confronts his mother as to the real reason Joni had behind dismantling Marcus's ministry. Let's take a listen.
Not hiding any part of this.
Yes, you are. Why have you tried to shut up Denise? Why have you threatened her with lawsuits?
Jonathan?
Why? I want to know. What does she know that you're so scared of?
Denise doesn't know anything, but she's broke confidentiality with...
So why have you threatened her with lawsuits then?
I have not threatened her with a lawsuit. I said if she continues...
That's not true. Darius Johnston threatened her with a lawsuit.
There could be legal action. In the middle of controversy, and more times than one, where Susie was in the middle of. It's just a pattern that keeps on and on, and it's going to stop.
What does Denise know that's so incriminating to you?
She doesn't know anything. She doesn't know anything. I know.
So why are you so scared of her?
I know.
You completely shut down an incredible ministry that was inspired by my father because you wanted to cut ties with her.
No.
Someone that's been nothing but a blessing to our family.
Whatever Denise had in our life was because of me.
What?
The reason that we bought the house was because I trusted her, but she betrayed me.
What is it called?
With many people, she's not only betrayed me, she's told me things you said, Susie said, all the kids said. She cannot be trusted. You don't use a person for counseling. Well, first of all, she's not a counselor. She is a woman with some prophetic gifting, but she betrayed all of that. Once you see that in someone...
As soon as she raised her hand and said that this marriage was not right, you cut her off. Denise is the only one that's talked to both Doug and Lisa. Jimmy Evans hasn't, no other counselor has. She knows a better story of what happened and whether it would be appropriate or not.
She doesn't.
And you are scared of that.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
Well, if any of you thought Jonathan was just the mild-mannered, quiet kid in the corner, he sure knows how to stand up for the truth, doesn't he? And that's why we all love him. We hear Jonathan over and over again holding his mother's feet to the fire of truth and trying to get her to truly admit to what her true motive was for shutting down Poppy's House. Joni had several reasons to shut this ministry down, and they all served her purpose, not God's. Number one, the first reason why Joni shut down Poppy's House was optics. Didn't look good for her to try to run a ministry that heals broken marriages after the husband strays when she just pilfered a married man and put him in her pocket. Number two, revenge. Joni had it out for Denise Boggs. What some of you may not know is that not only was Denise Boggs involved in counseling the family, counseling baby Lamb, Jonathan, Susie, and helping to begin an investigation against Pete, the brother-in-law, the suspected abuser of baby Lamb. But Denise also threw up a lot of red flags when Joni Lamb started her relationship with Doug Weiss. Denise Boggs was so concerned for Joni, the Lamb kids, and the Daystar ministry that she sent letters to the children and had phone conversations explaining to them why she thought it was a bad idea for Joni to marry Doug. She also spoke to Joni on occasions as well, sharing her heart and her concern for Joni and warning Joni to stay away from a married man. Denise Boggs was also involved in counseling Doug Weiss as well as Lisa Weiss in helping them to try to unpack what the issues in the marriage were and see if there was a way to reunify them. As you remember, Doug Weiss filed for divorce 8 short weeks after Marcus passed away. He went from telling everybody on the Daystar set and anyone else that would listen that he was married to the most wonderful woman in the world and had a very fulfilling, intimate relationship with her, among other things, as well as owning a business together. However, as soon as Marcus took his last breath, Doug Weiss had to say goodbye to Lisa. And it was Denise Boggs that was involved in counseling them during those very last days of their marriage together. Denise agreed that Lisa loved Doug and wanted him back and would do anything she needed to make the relationship work. Doug had already made up his mind that he preferred Joni's balance sheet view over Lisa's beach view. Too bad Joni's balance sheet is shrinking quicker than a fat girl on Ozempic. Interestingly enough, the third reason why Joni had to shut down Poppy's house was legal protection. Now, how would shutting down Poppy's house provide Joni Lamb with legal protection, you may ask? Well, like we spoke about, Denise Boggs holds all the receipts. She has letters, emails, documentation, clinical notes, every single thing needed to show the validity of the abuse that happened to baby Lamb, as well as the illegitimacy of Joni's current marriage to Doug. Joni has a big axe to grind with Denise. But by shutting this ministry down that included Denise, now she can use in her defense that Denise just has sour grapes and is just a disgruntled former ministry partner that's coming against Joni with all of this paperwork. Joni can now argue in court that the only reason Denise is bringing her receipts of the truth is because she has an axe to grind with Joni over the dissolving of her ministry partnership at Daystar. One thing that's helpful to remember when you're dealing with the narcs is they're always playing chess while hoping you're playing checkers. There are many other stories in the Roundup this week. Michael Brown was back in the news. The Firefly report had been released, and then his board of directors, which includes 2 people, one of which is on the payroll, put out their own summary and said that Michael Brown didn't do anything wrong. He may have had poor judgment towards the young college student he tried to SA, but nevertheless, it was just bad judgment, and he's free to resume ministry. It's interesting to note that the Firefly report did not look into the married woman that Michael Brown had groomed and seduced into an illicit sexual relationship and the charges of adult clergy sexual abuse in that case, as well as addressing any of the allegations of him covering up the Globe ministry leaders that SA'd and assaulted dozens and dozens of children, boys and girls, that were housed in an orphanage in Haiti. We know that the wheels of justice seem to move slowly, but we're praying that the witnesses and the evidence in those cases will continue to come forward and that those allegations of abuse and cover-up will be addressed Jimmy Evans is still preaching the submit gospel. This past week, he was shown telling a congregation that Jesus was wrong for staying behind in the temple while his parents traveled back from Jerusalem. Jimmy Evans would rather tell the whole world that Jesus was wrong instead of telling the world that Jimmy himself is wrong. Jimmy was also seen this week swooping in to save the day for a minister by the name of John Lindell. Certainly not an A-lister in the scamvangelical community, but a notable leader who basically, over the past 5 years, defrauded his entire congregation by rewriting church bylaws, throwing anyone off the church board that disagreed with him, dissolving church membership, and setting himself and his 2 sons up as the kings in their own personal church kingdom. All of John Lindell's fancy legal work actually got the church buildings and properties removed out from under the Assemblies of God organization and placing all of those assets in his own name and his family's name. Jimmy Evans swooped in to save the day for John Lindell, supporting him in all of his illegitimate ministerial endeavors. I wonder what scripture Jimmy will twist next. Maybe the parable of the wicked vine dressers. Today, Robert Morris has his day in court. The founder of one of the nation's largest churches is set to appear before a judge today. Robert Morris is accused of S.A.ing an Oklahoma child in the 1980s. Authorities say Cindy Clemenshire was 12 when the alleged abuse began. Clemenshire and Morris are expected to attend Friday's hearing. However, Clemenshire is not required to be there. Cindy Clemenshire said the time has come to hold Morris accountable. It's just the first step to justice is having the indictment, Cindy Clemenshire said. I really hope that it makes a statement to everyone out there that this behavior is not okay. Morris was indicted on 5 counts of lewd or indecent acts with a minor. The alleged incidents occurred between May of '82 and 1985 in Hominy, Oklahoma, while Morris was a traveling preacher. Friday's hearing is expected to be short. Morris has entered a not guilty plea. Here is a news clip detailing today's hearing.
Hey guys, I'm in Pawhuska, Oklahoma today here at the Osage County Courthouse where Robert Morris, the founder and former lead pastor of Gateway Church in Southlake, made his first public appearance this morning since resigning from the church last year. Morris has been charged with 5 counts of child sex abuse dating back to the 1980s. Today's hearing was incredibly short. They basically acknowledged his presence in the courtroom and then set a preliminary hearing date for September 4th. Also in the courtroom, though, was the victim in the case, Cindy Clemenshire. She was seated there with her parents, her sister, her niece, some of her friends. She's now in her 50s. I spoke to her as she was walking into the courthouse this morning. She said she was ready for this, that this prosecution, these charges have been a long time coming. I also tried to talk to Morris before the hearing, but his attorney intervened and said they wouldn't be making any comments today.
And last but certainly not least, the Vatican got a new pope this week. Yesterday, Rome elected Pope Leo XIV, Robert Francis Prevost, the very first American to ever be elected as the Pope. The decision to elect an American goes against conventional wisdom, which has held that the United States holds enough power in the world already. The new Pope has spent much of his life outside the United States, so he's also considered to have a global perspective. And in fact, he holds a Peruvian passport in addition to his American and Vatican ones. Notably, Leo addressed his flock in Spanish and Italian, but not in his native English. President Donald Trump quickly congratulated him. It's such an honor to realize that he is the first American Pope, Trump said. What excitement and what a great honor for our country. I look forward to meeting Pope Leo XIV. It will be a very meaningful moment, Trump wrote on Truth Social. While he is being greeted with warm congratulations, Pope Leo will inevitably face scrutiny for his handling of sexual abuse cases in Peru and as an Augustinian superior. It looks like we'll all have to be keeping a very close eye on Paula White and her White House faith office, along with all of the other rodeo clowns and trick ponies included in Joni's weekly roundup. That's all for today. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.